Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
I am mostly of the persuasion that high-end menswear is a scam. I'm not saying it's not expensive to make. It's very expensive. I'm not saying it doesn't take a lot of time to create. I'm just saying that since I've been buying suits since post-bar mitzvah, decades, right? My first suit was at Joseph A. Bank. Probably got 3 for $100, right? I am mostly convinced that you can't tell the difference, which is why I was really excited. An article came out. Did anybody read this? Gary Steingart in the Atlantic. This is the funniest thing I've ever read. Wrote an article about the world of high-end menswear. Anybody see this? It's so funny. It's so funny. What he does, he convinces the Atlantic. I don't know how he did it. He convinces his publisher to send him across the world to meet with the finest suit makers on the face of the earth to build him, to create for him the most custom, beautiful, bespoke suit that the world could provide. And 10,000 words later, and I'm not kidding, $10,000 later, there's a picture of the author at the end of this article in his suit. And you know what it looks like?
A suit?
A suit. It looks like a suit. He's a guy in a suit. It looks like a suit. Now, you might be thinking, Rabbi, you just don't know high-end menswear, in which case, you're not altogether wrong. And I would be happy to discuss the finer points of suits and suit making if you are willing to provide such a suit for me over a beverage of your choice someday. Anyway, if it doesn't hit you over the head, if what you are wearing doesn't hit you over the head, clearly I am not going to notice. But in this week's Torah portion, you do notice high-end menswear. And I'm not kidding. Parshat Tetzaveh, 90% of this week's Torah portion is devoted to what Aaron, not me, Aaron the high priest, is wearing, and his sons. And let me tell you, you don't miss these guys. They're all men. You don't miss them. Because we, Israelites, it's safe to say we're into earth tones back then. Right? So we've got the shmatas on our back, right? The rags on our back. We left Egypt with a shirt, and we've been wearing that shirt for how many? 50 days, right? More. We've been wearing that shirt for a long time. And you know the color of the shirt? Whatever the dirt we were walking on yesterday is the color of the shirt.
Reddish,
the shmatas.
brownish, something or other.
Whatever it is, right? That's what we're wearing. And in the sea of earth tone, mud, you see the priests. And the parsha goes into tremendous detail. I'm going to share it with you so you don't have to read it. The priests are wearing crimson, blue, purple, white. They've got a headdress. They've got a chest plate with jewels. You don't miss the priests. And again, 90% of the parsha is devoted to what these guys are wearing. But the first 10% isn't. And I want to read to you the first line of this week's parsha because it's really, it doesn't fit the mold of the parsha itself. God says to instruct the Israelites, in our shmatas, instruct the Israelites to bring you clear oil of beaten olives for lighting actually the Ner Tamid. For us, mud-covered Israelites, to bring a little bit of olive oil for the Ner Tamid. Isn't that a fascinating way to start a Torah portion about what the priests are wearing? Right? So why is it that instead of it didn't have to start this way. Why is it that our Torah portion about priestly robes begins with us, plebes, you and me, bringing olive oil to light the Ner Tamid? And our rabbis answer this question actually with the title of the Torah portion itself. Anybody remember what it is? Cantor? Tetzaveh, right? We know it, obviously, right? Tetzaveh. And if I had a screen, I would show you. The word tetzaveh, actually say it with me, 1, 2, 3. Tetzaveh comes from the word mitzvah. Do you hear it? Tetzaveh, mitzvah. The letters are slightly, but it's the same word. Tetzaveh and mitzvah. So someone tell me, what's a mitzvah? Someone tell me what's a mitzvah. Good deed. Terrific. What else are you going to add to that? A commandment, right? So has anybody here ever been stopped on the street if you're walking through Williamsburg or LA or maybe DC, Jerusalem, and someone comes up to you and asks if you're Jewish? Just by show of hands. Anybody here ever had that happen to you? Oh, terrific. Mostly this side of the room. That's good. Hands down. So if the person is wearing a black hat or a long, modest dress, you can answer that question safely. And they're probably from Chabad. Anybody experienced this before? Right? They're probably from Chabad. They're going to come up to you. If it's Hanukkah season, they're going to invite you to light a menorah, right? This happened to you guys, right? If it's Sukkot, they're going to invite you to shake a lulav and an etrog. It's gendered, obviously. For them, if you're male, they might ask you if you want to wear tefillin. This happened to you? Yeah. If you're female, they might give you Shabbat candles and say, light these on Shabbos. Terrific, great. What's so fascinating is if they come up to you and ask if you are Jewish, the next thing they're going to ask you or invite you to do is not a huge thing, right? They're not going to ask you, I don't know what's a huge thing, like to become a kidney donor, right? They're not going to ask you to leave your job and become a rabbi or a cantor. They're not going to ask you to do something huge. They're going to ask you to do something really small. And our rabbis teach that, it's one of my favorite lines, that we should run to do an easy mitzvah as though we would run to do a difficult mitzvah. Now, you might think, well, of course I would do the easy mitzvah, right? That's easy. The hard ones are the hard ones. But I want you to imagine, and this is what our rabbis teach, that if you are seeing, God forbid, a child drowning in a river, of course you would jump in and save that child, right? What if you took that same spiritual energy and applied it to a mitzvah much, much smaller? And I share this with you because I'm not a Chabad rabbi, obviously. I'm not here to promote Chabad, obviously. But what's fascinating is that Chabad and Reform Judaism share the same spiritual foundation. Now, what I mean by this is that in some faith traditions, there is a fast track to redemption. That the world falls apart, and as it falls apart and disintegrates into madness and chaos, that as soon as things get bad enough, there is a Messiah that's going to come and save us from the misery that we've created for ourselves. Think of almost like a divine cleaning crew coming in after a party you regret, right? So that's fast-tracked redemption. We Jews, whether you're Chabad or Washington Hebrew, believe in a slower path to redemption. And we've used the term Tikkun Olam all the time here at Washington Hebrew, just by a show of hands. Who here has heard this term before? Tikkun Olam? Terrific. The joke in rabbinical school is, how do you say Tikkun Olam in Hebrew? Right? And so I want to explain this for a moment, because Tikkun Olam is the slow path to redemption. And in this, Chabad and Washington Hebrew are very much aligned. That we believe the world is broken into what's called 1 trillion different broken pieces. And every single mitzvah brings those pieces together again. So mitzvah after mitzvah after mitzvah. Every time you light Shabbos candles or a Chanukiah or wrap tefillin or shake a lulav and an etrog, the world becomes more whole. It's not the fast track, but it'll get you there. Not the fast track, but it'll get you there. And there's a lot of, there's a lot of humility that comes with these small mitzvot. There's a lot of humility that has us commit the same amount of energy to a small mitzvah as a big one. But I want to share this with you tonight, because in times when people are feeling powerless, in times when people feel like there's nothing that you can do, and by the way, this is not a political comment about the left or the right. Everyone's feeling some version of powerless in this time that we're in. Looking around the room, right? Unless there are people here who I don't recognize, there are probably no one here can do anything about what's happening in the federal government, right? There's probably no one here who can do anything about what's happening on the border with immigration or climate or what's happening in the Middle East. You and I are, let's be realistic, can we? You and I are relatively powerless. Now, you might be thinking, well, Rabbi, I've been feeling powerless since I started my career, right? I've been feeling, and I've had this conversation with too many people. I had an appliance repair person, member of Washington Hebrew, who said, Rabbi, all I do is fix people's broken stuff. What am I doing here? Right? What impact am I making with the years that I have? Actually, this is not a profession-specific thing. I had a lawyer, managing partner of a firm, tell me essentially, all I do, he said, all I do is keep people who should be getting sued from getting sued. That's my job. I've even had doctors tell me half of what I do is fight with insurance companies, right? What kind of difference am I making if all I can do is whatever it is that I'm doing? Let me tell you, a small difference counts. The little things that you do add up to nothing shy of the redemption of the world. And that's how God speaks to us as Jews. We believe that revelation is ongoing. And that doesn't mean that God is parting the clouds and speaking to you in sunbeams and angels. But that does mean that God speaks to you through the needs of the world. That God speaks to you through the needs of the world. And that's why we have this amazing holiday coming up, the holiday of Purim. The holiday of Purim it takes place in a time just as chaotic as ours today. Without saying too much, the fate of the Jewish people is very much in the balance. Mordecai begs Esther, the heroine of the story, to do something, to intervene. Do you know the story? And Esther says, oh my God, if I go to the king, who is mercurial on a good day, and it doesn't go well, that's the last thing I'm going to do. And Mordecai tells Esther, and I'm going to paraphrase here, but it's one of my favorite lines from the Bible. Perhaps you are here, Esther. Perhaps you are here for just such a purpose. Perhaps you are here for just such a purpose. And I tell you this because I'm looking around the room, and probably none of us are slated to save the world. That's the reality. Probably none of us are going to do anything so groundbreaking that 100 years from now, someone's going to remember our name. Probably that's not in the cards for you and me. But shy of saving the world, maybe you could save your corner of it. Shy of saving the world, maybe there is someone who actually needs you. And I share this for you because maybe there's that person who you've walked past on the street who's been asking you for help for weeks, months, years, or more. Maybe that's why you're here. Maybe you have a child who calls and vents about whatever's going on at work or school or their life. Maybe you pick up the phone because that's why you're here, right? Maybe the person sitting next to you needs something from you that you have not given them yet. Maybe that's why you're here. You're not going to save your corner of the world, but you can save your pocket of it. You can save that little slice of the world that God needs you to redeem. And that's why our Torah portion begins with us Israelites caked in mud, offering a little bit of olive oil. Because the world will never be saved by some guy in a suit. It's never going to happen. But you and me taking the slow path to redemption, maybe there is a chance. Maybe there is a chance. And I believe that redemption will come one day. I really do. That redemption will come one day. If not in my lifetime, then in the lifetime of my children, of my grandchildren, of my great-great-great-great-grandchildren, please God. And I know that when redemption comes, it's going to be because of you, because of me, because of all of God's children perfecting, healing our corners of the world. Shabbat Shalom. Good Shabbos.